I discussed with you yesterday the second half, so to speak, of the Parsha of Achrimot, which deals with the prohibitions of aroyot, of sexual impropriety. This Parsha is introduced by a pesech. The Torah had said, Kamase Eretz Mitzrayim Asher Yotzasa Mishom Uchamase Eretz Canaan Asher Atem Boyim Shom Lo Sasim. So the Torah is exact in its words. So the Torah emphasized Kamase, how they behave, what they do. And that's based on the idea that the Torah emphasizes to us over and over again in many instances that it's not so much how we feel about things or even how we think about things or even what our intent is. What matters is what we do. So a person can do mitzvahs, the Chazal speak about it, and we hold them ena tzrichas kavana. They don't need good intent. People, many times, we do a good thing, but we're not happy in doing it. We give charity to people, and they're nudniks that bother us all the time. And we have 100 good reasons why not to help them. And why we feel somehow it's a presumption upon us. But most Jews in the end say you give them. You may give them begrudgingly. You may give them, without good feelings. But you give them credit. You got paid. In heaven, they mark it down, so to speak, on the right side of the ledger. There's a concept in the Gemara discusses it. It's called Aveira Lishma. The person does an Aveira, but he does it for the sake of a greater good. Does it for the sake of heaven, so to speak. So the Gemara mentions a few cases where we could understand such a thing. So, for instance, by Yoel, Eishes Chever Akeni, in the story of Dvorah and of Sisra, the general of Yovin Melech Canaan. So, according to the Gemara, she seduced him. And then she killed him, which is the way of women. So, but she did something wrong in the original act, so to speak. But, so they called that an Aveira Lishma. But they didn't take away the concept of Aveira there. Because the act remained that it was not right. Even though the eventual purpose and, and we have that many times. The nature of people is that somehow we think because of a greater good, we can somehow do things now which are forbidden, but it's for the greater good. If we'll amplify that, Chairman Mao killed 80 million Chinese to bring China into the 21st century. So he had a greater good. But the Torah would view him as a mass murderer. And we have other instances such as that. Because people want to feel good about what they do. So they look at their feelings and their emotions, and they don't see the consequences of their behavior. And the Torah says, K'maaseh Eretz Mitzrayim. The Mitzrayim felt good about what they were doing. The whole society felt good about it. It was their tradition. They worshipped the pharaohs. They built Pisam Ramses. They were the most advanced culture in the Middle East at its time. But they behaved abominably. And the Torah holds us to our behavior, not to how we feel about things. And that's what the Gemara says, the Mishnah says, Lo ha-medrash ikar ela ha-maaseh. I don't care about the medrash. I don't care how you feel about it. I don't care what your opinion. But what do you do? What's the result of your behavior? What's the practical result of it? And that is the introduction to all of these halachas. Because the halachas come to tell us what to do, not what to think. Naturally, if I could think holy thoughts every time I do a mitzvah, it's wonderful. And if I felt very good about every mitzvah that I do, that's also wonderful. But the Torah spoke to human beings. And human beings sometimes feel put upon, right? Why is the Seder so long? Let's make it shorter, say, cut out half of it. 4 cups of wine, 2 cups of wine. Why I make such a big shear on matzah? I can't beat it. That's what they wanted. The nature of us is to do what's comfortable for us, what makes us feel good. And if people feel like that, so then you end up in trouble. Because then it becomes Maaseh Eretz Mitzrayim and Maaseh Eretz Canaan. Everything that they did made them feel good. They thought they were doing great things. But what resulted from it is disaster for them and for others and for those whom they influenced and who followed in their path. We see that over and over again, how it plays out. How it plays out in Jewish life, how it plays out in today's political world. Today's political world is all how you feel, doesn't it? If I feel like I'm a girl, I'm a girl. Doesn't make any difference what I am. Right? I don't know if I'm allowed to say it because he's recording it. But do you ever hear such nonsense? And it's mikubal, it's absolutely. The state of New York now, when a child is born, on the birth certificate, it says male, female, other. So you imagine that you take a baby and mark it as other, and the child grows up as an other. And can there be any greater abuse of children than that? But it made somebody feel good, otherwise they wouldn't have done it. And if we have tragically hundreds of such examples in our societies today. The Western world has gone off the rails. It's because, Yitzchak said, Avimelech rak ein yiras Elohim b'makom hazeh. In a secular world where there is no God and there is no heavenly moral principles, so everything can happen. Boys can become girls and girls can become boys, and everything can be. And it's all good. Nations can be destroyed. Well, it's all good. So the Torah said, Lo ha-medrash ikar ela ha-maaseh. Let's see what you do. And therefore, we see also that the Mishnah says to us, "L'ficha chirbo lehem Torah mitzvos." God gave us a lot of Torah and a lot of mitzvahs. The Gemara says, we could really shrink the Torah down to three things. The Chavakuk shrunk it down to one thing. Tzadik b'emunoso yichya. That's enough, right? What I need? 613 mitzvahs and all the rules and all the restraints and all the regulations. Because that's the only thing that holds us. The only thing that gives us some sort of stability. Allows us to see what we do and not what we feel. And that is the really Chazal wanted to commemorate that. The Torah wanted to commemorate Pesach, freedom. So the Torah commemorated it with mitzvahs, with action. The Torah could have said, every year, 15th of Nisan, we're going to have a lecture about freedom. I'm going to show a movie about freedom. But that wouldn't last. It wouldn't make it over 3,700 years. Here, Bolhem Torah mitzvahs. I gave you a lot, big Torah and a lot of mitzvahs, and always to remember, Hashem chofetz l'man tzidko. God wants you to do what's right. To do what's right. And therefore, Yagdil Torah v'yadir. So I think that's an important idea for us to have as we approach this great yontiv of freedom. Chazal darshaned it because it says chorus ala luchos. So the Gemara says al tikre chorus ala cherus. The luchos are freedom. The luchos are what gives us this sense of who we are. And that's what the Ron Shalom told Moshe at the beginning. When you come out of Mitzrayim, there's a purpose to come out of Mitzrayim, not just to be freed from physical bondage. There's an eternal purpose here. You'll become a special people. That's the whole idea that we have a sphere of the connection between Pesach and Shavuos. The Shavuos is called Atzeret. So Atzeret means it's the end of Pesach. Pesach is 7 weeks. Because until you get to Shavuos, until you get to Matan Torah, then the freedom is only an emotion. And it's an emotion that cannot be replicated over the generations. I was in the barber shop today, which is a fountain of wisdom to me. There are two places, the barber shop and the taxi cab, where you understand life the way it is. So there was a person there, so he recalled, he was an elderly gentleman, he recalled voting in 1949 in the first Knesset vote. And he was saying how, how emotional it was, how great it was, and, and people stood in line, and it was just wonderful. And then 5 minutes later, he's still talking to the barber, and he says, my grandchildren, they went on a tiyul, so they couldn't vote this time. They didn't go to vote. So he couldn't pass it on to his grandchildren. That somehow it's a schus to vote in Eretz Yisrael for a Jewish government. It died in 70 years. And we're talking about preserving something for 3,300 years. So that's why it says, L'fichach hir b'lehem Torah mitzvahs. It's the only way to do it. The only way to do it, Ella, kisheyesh lecha matzah moror menachim lefanecha. So then we can talk about cherus. Otherwise, cherus is an emotion. Emotions change, emotions pass, not lasting. And we are always looking for things to be lasting and eternal. So I think that this combination of the Parsha of Achrei Mos together with the Yontif of Pesach allows us to have an insight in general as to how we should look at life throughout the year, certainly Jewish life. I want to wish everyone a Chag Kosher v'Sameach. I'm going to my children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. One of them called me up and said, I know where you're going to hide the Afikoman. So I said, well, you'll tell me, I'll see. I haven't thought about it yet, but he's on it already. But when you're 5 years old, that's a good idea. And I hope to be able to respond in kind. And so we should hear good news from each other and have a wonderful Yontif. Rabbi Chananya ben Akash Omer Ratzak Gori Baruch Hu L'Zakos Yisrael Leficha Hir B'Lehem Torah Mitzvah Shenemar Adonai Chafetz Zman Tzidko Yagdil Torah V'Yadir.